Gun control groups have dropped the mask. And not only have they dropped the mask on this little gem, they don't want some guns. They want no guns. No guns for you, no guns for the police. They've also made the claim that police violence is gun violence. So if a cop has to shoot a bad guy to defend themselves or save someone's life, they are classifying that as gun violence. Folks, we're going to a dark place. We're going into the world of pro-gun control groups. Let's get into it. I want to talk about something that a lot of people in the gun community have been saying for years. And every time we say it, the other side says, you're being paranoid. They say, nobody wants to take your guns. Well, today I'm going to show you, in their own words, that's exactly what they want. Let's go through a couple statements. Let's start with Brady United. So Chris Brown is their president after a Border Patrol agent in Portland shot 2 Venezuelan nationals who were members of the Tren de Aragua gang after those gang members allegedly tried to run agents over with a vehicle. Chris Brown tweeted, quote, "Whether in the hands of federal officers or everyday Americans, guns do not make us safer," end quote. Read that again. Not just everyday Americans, federal officers. She's saying even cops and federal agents should not have guns. And it's not just Brady. On their own website right now, Brady United States says, quote, "Police violence is gun violence." Shannon Watts, the president of Moms Demand Action, has publicly declared, quote, "Police violence is gun violence, and that's why our movement must be responsive as well," end quote. This isn't new. That last quote was back in 2021. And then there's Gabby Giffords herself, who heads the Giffords Law Center, saying that quiet part out loud again in a Time magazine interview where she said, "No more guns. Gone." These aren't fringe figures or groups or individuals. You can cherry pick whatever you want. We've got the internet now. In case you didn't notice, you can cherry pick whatever you want as long as you're willing to go to fringes to get whatever weird take or hot take or whatever it is. But it's important to understand that's not what I'm doing. That's not what you're hearing. These are the leaders of the largest gun control organizations in the country who are systemically funded and highly connected at donor class level, financier class level, political class level. And they're telling you their end game, total disarmament, civilians and law enforcement. Now, let's talk about what happens when you actually try this, because you know what? It's been tried. The United Kingdom enacted a near-total handgun ban in 1997. In the years that followed, homicide rates went down. I'm just kidding. They increased, peaking around the years 2002 to 2003. Gun control advocates love to point to the UK's low overall murder rate compared to the US, but here's what they always just tactfully leave out. The United Kingdom had the lower murder rate before the ban, too. The ban didn't manufacture or cause or create the low rate. The UK was already less violent in the first place. And after the ban, things actually got worse. John Lott at the Crime Prevention Research Center has documented this pattern across multiple different countries and jurisdictions. When you ban guns, even in an island nation where smuggling is a lot harder, homicide rates don't stay the same. They don't tend to go down. They tend to go up because the people most likely to obey the laws and to disarm themselves are the people least likely to commit the crimes. You are disarming the good guys and leaving the bad guys armed. What do you think those bad guys are going to do with their newfound resource advantage? When I say resource advantage, that's code for when they break in your house at 3 a.m., there's not much you're going to be able to do about it. You're along for the ride. So let's talk about what guns actually do in the hands of law-abiding citizens. And I've got so many stats I've gone through over on this channel. Let's just hit you with a couple fresh ones just to remind you. Because this data gets buried every single time by the media and by allies and all this other kind of stuff. According to the National Crime Victimization Survey, that's a federal survey, by the way, not something that just came out in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan or something. Firearms were used defensively in at least 166,000 violent crime scenarios on average between the years 2014 and 2018. 166,000. You have to remember, for context, Homicides committed by use of firearm, usually we're talking about in any given year, historically 14,000 to 19,000, give or take, in the United States. So we're saying that for every single time a firearm is used to take a life, we're talking about, on average, maybe 8 to 12 times-ish, there's a firearm used defensively. Now, let me be clear. If you're anti-gun and you don't like that ratio, I picked the most favorable ratio and numbers for anti-gun folks. Because if you want to pick other scenarios, that's the lowest defensive gun use one I could find. The highest defensive gun use statistic that I found, that wasn't from some sort of fringe group or something like that. This was actually cited in President Barack Obama's 2013 Center for Disease Control study, which was looking at the prevalence of defensive gun use in the United States, cited 2.5 million. 2.5 million. So if you don't like my give take 10 to 1 ratio of defensive gun use is life saved versus offensive gun use is life taken, we can get way worse with it. 2.5 million defensive gun uses in the United States. Another study found that I think there's 498,000 defensive gun uses just in the event of a home invasion scenario. Think about that. Here's another one for you. The Crime Prevention Research Center documented at least 78 instances of armed civilians stopping active shooters in just 2 years, 2022 and 2024. Across just 3 years, 2022 to 2024. During that same time period, however, the FBI reported just 3. Not because it wasn't happening, but were they even looking? If you want to slice the numbers differently, CPRC found 121 different active shooter cases during that same time period, of which 45 were stopped by armed citizens. Now keep in mind, the overwhelming majority of mass public shootings take place in gun-free zones. Coincidence, by the way? And depending upon which number you want to pick, it's either 95% of mass public shootings take place in gun-free zones, or 88%. When an anti-gun news organization fact-checked the claim of 95% of mass public shootings take place in gun-free zones, they put out their own number of 88%. I don't care, we'll run with 88%. But consider that fact that 45 out of 121 were stopped by armed citizens when we're looking at all mass public shootings. And if you just want to look at the mass public shootings that took place outside of gun-free zones, then it's the majority are stopped by armed citizens. And folks, it actually gets better. Armed civilians not only stop more active shootings outside of gun-free zones, they stop them more frequently compared to law enforcement, but they also face a lower risk of being killed or injured than police officers themselves who are responding to the same types of incidents. Maybe this is just one of many reasons why most police officers are actually pro-responsibly armed Americans. As of 2024, keep in mind, about 21.5 million Americans held concealed handgun permits, allowing Americans to lawfully carry firearms in most places in public outside of their home. That represents about 8.2% of the adult population. Compare that to approximately 671,000 full-time sworn law enforcement officers in 2020, with roughly a third, keep in mind, are on duty at any point in time. So you're talking about having, when it comes to responding to some sort of mass act of evil, you're talking about having a response group that goes from 250 to 300,000 law enforcement officers, pumping that up to over 21 million. And let me be clear, I'm not suggesting that it's the role of armed Americans to be going out there and stopping bad guys. You do you. I'm just saying it's a benefit. And those permit holders outnumber on-duty cops by about 100 to 1. I'm also just going to throw out there as well that the vast majority at this point of states in the United States do not require any kind of concealed carry license to lawfully conceal carry your firearm when you leave your house. In other words, 21.5 million, that's just the number of folks who actually went ahead and got the license. How many other folks are actually out there lawfully and responsibly exercising their God-given rights under the Second Amendment, protecting themselves and perhaps discouraging crime, criminals, evil, violence, and by extension, protecting the rest of us as well, all at the same time? Why do you think bad guys choose gun-free zones? So here's my question for you folks at the end of the day, and I want you to tell me down in the comment section below. Would disarming law-abiding citizens make the country safer, make your community safer. Keep in mind, if you want to look at the FBI homicide statistics, you have roughly a 300 to 400% or higher chance of being a victim of a homicide in major metropolitan cities as compared to suburbs or rural areas. Yet, the vast majority of our nation's firearms are in the suburbs and in the rural areas. If guns caused crime, rural America and the suburbs would be a shooting gallery. There are less firearms per capita in major cities, even though the homicide rate is 300 to 400% higher. Why is that if guns cause crime, if guns cause violence? Why is that? And that's where you start to see the gun control movement really, if we follow the science, it's not about reducing violence. It's not about saving lives. It's about control. Gun control. It's about control. They're telling you in their own words what they want to do. The question, however, is whether you're going to listen. As always, I welcome your insight and feedback. Keep in mind, I'm the internet to you. You're the internet to me. I only see you in person when I bump into folks, as well as, of course, reading your wonderful comments. So keep it up. I want to hear from you. Be sure to hit that like button, share the video around. We're going to close out with our ever popular quote of the day. And today's comes from 1764 from Cesar Beccaria in his book On Crimes and Punishment, not to be confused with Crime and Punishment, not Fyodor Dostoevsky. This is On Crimes and Punishment from 1764. He wrote, quote, "The laws that forbid the carrying of arms are laws of such a nature. They disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes." I appreciate you sticking around. I'll see you in the comment section. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Thanks for joining us on that video. And if you liked that one, then I think you're gonna like these over here too.